Since 2004, the indigenous culture and knowledge has gained substantial importance as effective disaster risk reduction tool. But the important question is how to include these tools in disaster management planning. The answer has been provided by the international forums like the Framework of Action, Shanghai Framework of Action, and UNISDR, that the indigenous culture and knowledge can be capitalized upon through community-based approaches. Community-based approaches can also help to address the underlying issues of disaster vulnerabilities. Our research promotes the agenda of these forums, and it's a comparative study between the remote indigenous communities of Australia and Pakistan and how their disaster resilience can be enhanced using community-based approaches. And this presentation is presenting the finding from the first phase of study from Pakistan. That's our research team, and I'll really like to acknowledge my research team for studying this project and be in the right direction. It is really important to talk about why CBDR is important for indigenous communities. Well, it offers the participatory style of action with greater inclusion of indigenous people in disaster management planning, especially from the disadvantaged fractions of society like disabled and elders. Greater involvement means greater control of the indigenous affairs in their own hands. CBDRR can offer to address the underlying issues of vulnerabilities and to devise the tailor-made strategies in view of the local requirements and perspectives. It can offer to draw upon cultural capacities and capabilities like knowledge in disaster management planning, and can create disaster resilience as an ongoing process which is embedded in the culture and day-to-day practices of people. And it can help to build the trust between indigenous and non-indigenous stakeholders, bringing them together through participatory style of management and partnerships. However, involving indigenous communities in disaster management planning significantly widens the horizon of DRR arena. By considering all the factors which can affect the disaster resilience, for example, political, social, economic, geographical, cultural, or religious factors, thus requiring the practitioners and researchers to approach CBDRR as a holistic and systematic phenomenon. However, research to date has only focused on limited and individual aspects of this phenomenon, thus leading to creation of incomplete and impoverished theories. Research is particularly scarce in indigenous domain to understand the indigenous specific factors which impact their disaster resilience perception and action. For example, their strong kinship system, their relationship to land and families, their area of attachment, their socio-economic disparities, and most importantly, their culture and knowledge. So in order to address these gaps, we took a holistic and systematic approach, and through our research, we are trying to see what are the individual and contextual factors which impact the indigenous disaster risk resilience in Australia and Pakistan, and how does the interplay among these factors impact the indigenous disaster resilience perceptions and behavior. How can indigenous culture and knowledge can be drawn upon for disaster management, and what are the strategies through which these factors can be addressed in community-based approaches, and what do communities from both countries suggest how CBDR can be effectively implemented. Together, all these research questions will lead to construction of a universal indigenous CBDR theory which can be generalizable across the broad spectrum of preparedness in the indigenous communities of not only Australia and Pakistan, but in the whole world. In order to consider CBDR as a holistic phenomenon, we adopted a systematic approach and adopted ecological system theory and symbolic interactionism as our conceptual framework for this study. ESD afforded to chalk out the underlying factors of disaster resilience, and symbolic interactionism afforded to trace the meaning-making processes through which the indigenous people attach meaning to those factors, which in turn impact their disaster management-related decisions. Again, to complement the holistic indigenous knowledge systems, we took a multi-method approach Building on indigenous research methodologies, we employed case study, grounded theory, and ethnography as our methodologies. Together, all these methodologies afforded to select two communities, each from Australia and Pakistan, as case studies. Through grounded theory, which built on conversations and joining circles and data collection methodologies, we examined the underlying factors of disaster vulnerabilities and resilience, and ethnography built upon observation. It provided the opportunity to add the culture and day-to-day practices of the people which impact their disaster-related decisions. To achieve the objective and outcomes, this research project is divided into two phases. The first phase from Pakistan has been completed. That is the community we have worked with. In Pakistan, it is located in Himalaya mountains in northern part of Pakistan, and it is situated on the bank of a river. This whole area receives heavy snowfall during winter, which melts down during summer season, causing floods almost every year. We carried out the community consultation in April 2018, and on COC and ethics clearance, the actual data collection happened over the 4 months. A steering committee was formulated to supervise the whole research process and to ensure that the research is conducted in an ethical and sensitive way. For example, due to cultural considerations, the research team was not allowed to interview the females, but it was very important to include their perspective. So, upon advice from steering committee, we trained an elder member of steering committee and did the sharing circles. With the female, a co-researcher was also employed to conduct the interviews in local language and for the translation, transcription, and analysis. Steering committee and co-researchers also greatly helped to add the background and contextual information into the analysis. 19 conversations were held. Initial conversations were conducted with community elders and leaders, and further participants were selected based on the emerging themes and on the consultation of the steering committee and co-researcher. Among the participants, 6 were males and 13 females. Sorry, I wrote it the other way around, 13 males and 6 females. 8 participants opted for one-to-one conversations, and rest of them consented for jamming circles. 1 male and 2 female jamming circles were conducted, and data was analyzed using grounded theory and the software. So among this fieldwork led us to identify the constraints and facilitators of the disaster risk and resilience in this community. Among the constraints, the most important was lack of government support. There is no presence of government at the community level at all. There is no coordination or participation from the local people. There is absolute lack of rule of law, no zoning or land use policy, or building code standards or policies. District disaster management structure, although it exists, which is very important to coordinate at the community level, but it is completely dysfunctional because of lack of resources and vision and policy direction. There is widespread poverty and unemployment in the area due to lack of livelihood opportunities, high population, and consequently lack of proper and sufficient housing are the other contributors. Infrastructure problems, as you might have seen from the community picture, no roads, bridges, or the proper housing structures. There are lack of educational, health, and energy facilities. Especially the lack of energy facilities has led toward massive deforestation in the area over the past couple of decades, which has significantly contributed into higher number of floods in the past few years. And most importantly, ignorance of local knowledge. Local people possess some great knowledge about the natural events, but it has never been considered at the government level in disaster management planning. We'll talk more about this in the next slide. Among the facilitators, role of NGOs appeared as a main facilitator. In the absence of government, NGOs have filled in the gap. National and international NGOs have done a great work in several areas. For example, provision of micro livelihood opportunities, construction of mitigation structures like protection walls and check dams, women empowerment, provision of primary education facilities, and so on. There's a great social capital among the people. As per local culture, the common living style is combined and collective family system. and elders serve as the head of the family. The local institutions like religious places, mosque, a local community-based development organization, and the communal gathering place, which is called Hujra locally. They provide the places for people to come together and share their communal problems and offer participatory type of management. The local people are very skillful women. They are very skillful in embroidery and sewing, which is their main source of income. Males are very skillful in livestock and agriculture. Besides that, this area is a very famous tourist spot of the country. So the handicraft industry is very popular. For example, the woolen products like blankets and shawls and the wooden architecture. NGOs have done a good job to build the protection wall on the banks of the river, which has greatly imparted the confidence among the communities and has actually contributed to a fewer number of losses during the floods in the last few years. Government has done one good thing. They have really focused on deforestation in the area and have recently imposed heavy penalties and punishments in the region. Besides that, government has also started a project to plant 1 billion trees in this whole province. This project is commonly known as Billion Tree Tsunami, and it has actually received a lot of international recognition and appreciation. So these strategies have helped to increase the green area in that region, and most importantly, the local traditional knowledge. Local people have great knowledge about the natural events like rains. They know the spells of rain, what kind of rain is dangerous, like thick and thin rain. A very interesting finding I would like to share about is the local belief about floods. The local people believe that the round pebbles in the waterway, big or small pebbles, they are the eggs of water. And wherever these round eggs, these pebbles are found, they have been laid by water, meaning that water that hit that area somewhere in the past, left its eggs behind, and one day water would definitely come back to its eggs. And this notion was significantly confirmed during 2010 unprecedented flood. During that huge flood, the water actually hit the area where these pebbles were found, but those areas were never hit before in the remembered history of that region. Based on these findings, we reached on two conclusions. First, agencies specializing in different areas of disaster management need to collaborate and work in genuine two-way approach with the communities. And second, agencies need to listen to the indigenous perspective and their viewpoints, and need to consider the local indigenous knowledge, cultural and day-to-day practices in their disaster management planning. Based on these findings, we were able to construct a local CVDRR theory which assigns the role to different stakeholders. Government at the macro level can work on these aspects, including provision of macro livelihood opportunities like factories or the mega projects, or industry can strengthen the forest department to control the deforestation further, provision of infrastructure, ensure the rule of law, provision of subsidized energy needs, and most importantly, creation of effective district disaster management structure. At the micro level, government in coordination with NGOs can create local disaster management structure, for example, local community organization, and these three stakeholders at community level can work at micro aspects of resilience, for example, provision of primary and secondary health and education services, provision of micro livelihood opportunities like creation of embroidery centers or livestock, impart DRR training and ensure their sustainability and population control and these kinds of matters. These all strategies collectively can ensure the resilient communities. And at the community level, these three stakeholders can devise DDR plan and can improve the local capacities of local knowledge, local institutions, and social capital. So these were the findings from the first phase. For the second phase, we have selected a community, Kalavenku, that is in East Ireland, we had completed our community consultation. The project was presented to local authority and community, and they greatly appreciated the project. A local research organization, YALU, is willing to be a partner with the project and will be actually working as steering committee. Two co-researchers have also been engaged, and field work is expected to be started in November 2019. So this was the presentation, and we can have now question answer session, and I'll try to be in the same direction like your question.
Fabulous. So we've got some questions. Natasha?
Thank you, Tony, for your presentation. I was wondering about the comparison in terms of Indigenous, and you may have said this at the beginning, I might have missed it, but they're working with particular Indigenous ethnic groups in Pakistan. Sort of the first part to my question. And is there what's the rationale behind the comparison between Australia and Pakistan?
Right. So for your first part of question, this community, this is located in the northern part of Pakistan, and it represents the biggest tribe of that region. That tribe is called Yusufzai tribe. Within that community, there are 3 different clans according to their culture and political structure. For your second part of question, yes, apparently there are difference Pakistan and Australia being developing and developed countries. But the condition of indigenous communities is more or less same in whole part of the world. Yes, they are heterogeneous and local, but still they share some common characteristics. For example, the socio-economic disparities, because the phenomena of colonization was same throughout the world. Pakistan was ex-colony and was ruled for 100 years by Britishers. Besides that, the cultural traits are, there are some cultural similarities among the indigenous communities of the world. For example, their rule of non-competitiveness, their relationship with the land, with the ecology, with their kinship system. So these broad similarities, they can help to prepare the general guidelines of the disaster management and building their resilience. Obviously, they can be locally modified, but at least they give the broad guidelines, general guidelines.
It strikes me that there, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there seems to be a bit of dysfunction in the way you found the community resilience, and so is that because the local knowledges have been disregarded and diminished by the way that things have evolved?
Exactly. Well, obviously the local knowledge and culture, that is of vital importance, but it cannot be capitalized upon unless it is considered valuable. And this whole research project is about the ways how that can be considered and capitalized upon. And CBDRR is just one strategy to achieve that aim.
Sorry. You go first.
So, there's a couple of things. One is that, so it seems like a lot of those issues, and this is another thing that sort of goes to Natasha's question, a lot of the issues are global issues. You know, so the government is a sort of a global macro issue that's just impacting on local people. What about the deforestation? Is deforestation driven by the global issues, or is that just a local problem?
That is pretty much the local phenomena. It's only because that area is in abundance with the trees and the forest, but there are no energy facilities. So, and because there is no rule of law, no policy from the government, so people are free to cut wood because that is easy, that is free of cost fuel. So that has massively contributed toward deforestation. Another thing, this area was the center of activities for Taliban during Talibanization problem. Although this area has been completely clear now, but in those 2 years from 2012 to 2014 when Taliban were there, they used the forest as their main source of income. So they really chopped off all the trees and clear the area. But the good thing is government has at least realized the problem and they are significantly focusing on this area. Yeah, so I would say pretty much that's the local problem.
If you have a quick question.
Just a quick question. You said about like indigenous knowledge, local knowledge. What about religious knowledge? Does that has any impact on the community about disaster? Because we see that many faith-based organizations are working in the DRR.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Obviously, religious organization and institutions have great importance, especially in the collectivist society. For example, I talked about mosque. That is a place where people go 5 times a day to get together and offer prayers. So that is the main place which offer a place for people to come together and discuss their issues. Besides that, Pakistan is a Islamic country, and Islam has one of the fundamental principles, which is like donation and alms, where every person who meets the criteria is supposed to give a particular portion of their income every year to the poor, and that is strictly adhered to in the country. So whenever these areas, these backward areas, disadvantaged areas, they are hit with the emergencies and disasters, all the donations they come in and people, they really put in all the money because of their religious, they think it's their religious obligation. So obviously religious institutions and values, they have great importance in this whole disaster risk resilience.
Excellent. Thank you very much.